All right, some 26 minutes after 8 here on the AM show. Time now for my banner. And today I'm passionate about one thing because there were some statistics released last week which was really scary. Indiscipline on Ghana's roads results in the loss of lives annually. Now, each year, thousands of lives are lost due to acts of indiscipline, including jumping the lights, the red lights, speeding, unnecessary overtaking, among others. A total of 1,441 persons were killed in road crashes nationwide during the first 9 months of 2014. So in a bid to reduce this, the police MTTD spot fine for traffic offenders will be rolled out this year. The Motor Traffic and Transport Division of the Ghana Police Service say it has finished procuring equipment that will facilitate the spot fine regime. But how will the implementation of the spot fine law help reduce road carnage? Joining me for this detailed discussion really is Charles Odro-Kwarteng, who is the Assistant Planning Officer at the National Road Safety Commission. And then I'm also being joined by DSP Alexander Obeng. He's Director Training and Research, Police MTTD. I want to say good morning to you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, so it will be appropriate for me to start with you, Charles.
Sure.
This spot fine, the National Road Safety Commission, what does it think about it? Do you think that it's the appropriate answer to solve this problem?
Exactly. Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers. The sports fine regime, we as National Road Safety Commission see it as a step in the right direction. It's a regime stated clearly in the LI 2180 Regulation 157. And we see this as a good step in ensuring that our roads are safe from these unacceptable road crashes and fatalities. What we intend to do is to go out, educate road users, let them understand that this regime is not into kind of put burden on drivers or passengers, even on pedestrians, not to say accumulate resources from them or any other thing, but it's a mechanism we intend to implement to ensure that our roads are free. I remember last year we were out talking to drivers, talking to passengers, talking to pedestrians. Some felt it's just a strategy to take monies from drivers, from pedestrians, and from passengers. But we made them understand the fact that it's just a mechanism. We believe strongly that if the spot fine is fully implemented, I believe we would make a headway in the fight on road traffic crashes on our road. So we welcome this particular regime, clearly stated in the LI 2180. And when we went out, the challenge we had with this issue, most of the transport operators were complaining that they are not aware, they were not consulted. But the LI 2180 wasn't drafted in isolation. It wasn't handled by the MTTD, the DVLA, the road safety alone. Transport operators were part and parcel of the processes involved in coming out with the LI.
And they agreed on the fines?
And they agreed.
The amounts you're charging?
Fantastic. They are very much aware about every provision in the LI. So it was quite amazing. But we believe at this particular time, at the end of the year, just last year, we lost 1,856 people on our roads. So if we don't put in a mechanism to ensure that our roads are free from these unacceptable crashes, then I believe strongly we are doing a great disservice to Mother Ghana. So we welcome this particular idea, and the National Road Safety Commission will be out fully to educate drivers, passengers, and pedestrians on the provisions on this particular LI.
Okay, let me stay with you for a while, because you've even updated the figures that I had.
Exactly.
You're given 1,856.
Fantastic.
What sort of research have we done that tells us it's because of these things that drivers do, that's why we're recording these figures? Does it mean that the passenger or the pedestrian is always right? The person who's crossing the road is always right?
Not always right. As a pedestrian, if you want to cross the road, you have a process to follow. You don't just walk onto the road expecting that the car should stop at any point in time. We have designated places where pedestrians are supposed to use in crossing the road. we have the traffic light, we have using the pelican lights, we have footbridges, we have using the assistance of a traffic warden, a policeman. So as a pedestrian, before you cross the road, you need to ensure that you are really abiding by these laid down principles used in crossing the road. So it's not about you being right, as in being on the road and expecting vehicles to stop at any time.
Okay.
And for a driver to, when you are on the road and you see a pedestrian wanting to cross the road at designated places, you also need to slow down. What we say is that even when you are approaching an intersection, especially a traffic light, a Y junction, a T junction, where you can see a pedestrian crossing, the zebra crossing, as we all know, you need to slow down, because at that particular point, there would be a pedestrian who would want to cross the road.
Okay.
For passengers, what we are saying is that when you sit in a vehicle and you are traveling, you don't just be a passive passenger. You should be active. You should be vigilant. You should talk to the driver if he's doing something which is not right. You need to come collectively. That is a passenger empowerment campaign.
We'll talk more on that. Let me just engage DSP Alexander Obeng on this one. So do we have a date when this will be rolled out? When we are starting, the exact dates when we are starting this or these spot fines?
I hope you are not cornering me.
No.
All right. Good morning. Joe, my co-panelists, and yourself, and the platform and viewers. I think before I come to that, to the extent that the Highway Code admonished and enjoined prospective license applicants in provision 42 and 43, that there are vulnerable road users. There are those who are children who cannot judge speeds. There are those who are physically challenged. There are those who are blind and are using white canes, and aged or elderly. Pedestrians are always right.
No.
And that to that extent.
Okay.
Because the law said that at all times, because of vulnerability of these classes of users of our roads, drivers should look out, and that's why in the law they have been deterred and their speed managed under the rule of regulation 163, that when you are about in urban environment, built up areas where the road traverses, where buildings are constructed, definitely pedestrians will cross, because particularly these classes, and therefore your speed should be as low as 30 kilometers per hour. And to that extent, pedestrians are right.
Are they right?
That was just
stepping in the road. Yeah. So maybe we should just deal with this one. Then we'll move on to
that. Say that to that extent they are not right. But to this extent, that in the law, before you were handed with a license by Ghana, in your own provision, I'm talking about Highway Code, the primary document that every driver bought and sworn to drive on Ghanaian roads, provision 42, 43 admonished you and enjoined you. And it's also captured in section 36 of our Road Traffic Act, that when you are about in environment like I've described, because there are children who cannot judge speeds, there are elderly persons who may cross the road slowly, because there are blind who may be assisted with white canes, and physically challenged. When you are driving, you should slow down in this environment. But what you have seen is that...
So you're talking about particular environments?
You know, in built up, in areas where people live by the roadside. That's where we
discuss. Would that include the N1, for instance? Would it include the road in front of your training college, for instance?
No, for example, road on the Ring Road Central in front of GBC, for example, where we have zebra crossing, where people are being crashed on that road. How do you explain it when a driver is admonished to stop at the pedestrian or pelican crossing for those who are about to cross, and they crash and kill those who are crossing?
The question I wanted to ask you, when people just step in the road and they raise their hands to signal you to stop, is that acceptable by the law? I mean, is that right? How do you, if there's no pedestrian crossing, how do you cross the road?
Basically, it is important for us to note that in urban environment, because of these classes, the law says that every driver, when you are in this environment, always move, maximum is 50. And that tells us that at all times when people even step on the road, when they are being chased across, because you are moving at this speed, you will always pull up for the person not to be crashed. And that is important. And also note that drivers are aware that there is a gap when it comes to road furniture. road auditing and road marking and signs. And that is why the law says that when you are about in this area, slow down, so that when persons are about to cross, they look right. Ghana, we drive on the left, on the right, isn't it? So you look on your left and look on the right again. You look on your left when the vehicle is approaching.
We drive on the
before
left.
You stay. You have that we drive on the right, Ghana.
Okay.
You drive on. So you look on the
look left, right.
In fact, we used to drive on the left before 1974. But now we've shifted. We are not more in Britain or Japan environment. We are in Ghana, drive on the right. So a pedestrian, when you step on the road, irrespective of where you are coming from, this direction, look on your left and look on your right, look on your left again, and then you approach slowly and move. And the law says that particularly when you are a pedestrian, you see a driver sees a pedestrian crossing. At all times, you stop for the person to go, because the driver can get to wherever he's going as fast as possible than the pedestrian. And this is, we are emphasizing on this because when you look at the crash statistics and analysis that is done, it is concluded that if 100 dies, 62 or thereabout are crashed because of inappropriate and excessive speed by drivers.
Okay.
And 42 of these who die are also pedestrians. Mostly, majority of these pedestrians who are crashed are those who also are crossing at a level crossing, not walking by the roadside. So obviously, is that the more powerful road user is a driver who is admonished, is undermining the rights of the vulnerable, and that's what I said.
Yeah, but just before you come to the main question that I ask you, Charles, if you're crossing the road, shouldn't you also be aware or be mindful of the speed of the oncoming vehicle?
Exactly. That is what we at a commission, we say that before you move onto the road, you should ensure that where the vehicle is coming from, the vehicle is far away, so that if you want to cross, you can cross the road without any problem. If you think that you are faster than the road, mostly that is the mistake sometimes pedestrians we do. You think you are faster, you can cross the road before the car gets to you, and the car is even faster than you. That is where you see the conflict between the vehicle and pedestrians. So it's just about ensuring that where you are crossing is safe. You raised an issue of where there are no pedestrian crossing. We have what we call the curb drill, crossing at where there are no safe crossing points. You are supposed to identify places where you can see clearly from both ends. So you don't go and stand under a hill or behind even a wall and you would want to cross, or even behind a vehicle. With that, you are endangering your life. So if you're crossing and there's traffic, you cross in front of the vehicle, not behind. Not behind the vehicle. Okay. So that if there is any car from your back, you can really protect yourself safely. But when you stand, you cross the road in between parked cars, that is more dangerous. So we expect that if you want to cross at where there are no safe crossing points, the most important thing is you need to observe. You don't cross at these places with the headphones in your ears. You don't cross without watching left, right, or talking and left on the again, phone, or phone with crossing the road. That becomes very, very dangerous. How about, and maybe I should just hold on to this because I want the SP to answer my question, so I'll write it down. Forget. Okay. When are you rolling out this exactly this year? Thank you for helping us to promote safety of vulnerable road users this morning. In the course of the year, we are confident that for the first time since 2004, when Ghana dreamt of putting in place a spot fine mechanism, it will see the light of the day, and we are hopeful. We have the technical committee and the stakeholders have a guided action plan with timelines, and we are on course. First quarter, second quarter. We don't want to do that, but it has started. Why not? You be preparing us. But it has started. First of all, what we need, that Ghanaians are talking about, education. Exactly. So let us consummate that. We started talking about this since 2013. So when we road safety mentioned it when we had the press conference, it's still that more education, and we are not deterred because Ghana dreamt of it 2004, and we had the operational manual in the LI 2012, and we have tested the waters. Ghanaians are interested, but what they are saying is that Ghanaians are interested. Exactly. Yes, but they want to fight you so that you don't come and get on the road and go back, and they say, we told you. And that's why. So how is it?
picture it. How is it going to work?
Oh, it's basically simple. That today, when you are arrested per the road law, you will be processed on a hard copy of a CID form by a police officer. Okay. It takes sometimes days to push you to the motorway, like DV if you have misused it. It takes you to a police station. You are interrogated, and a prima facie case is established against you, and you are charged, and you are dragged to a motor court. Maybe handcuffed. Sometimes you sleep in our yard, and the next day you go, and the court listens to you back and forth, the normal court processes. And sometimes it takes days. The other difficulties that ensue and all that. And then eventually you are slapped with a fine, a term of imprisonment, or both, or whatever. And now Parliament says that, fine, but there are certain offences that have been committed today that can be set aside, so that on the road when you commit, instantly we are given a electronic ticket, instantly, so that you go to any bank or post office or any pay outlet, you go and settle a meager amount of what you would have been slapped with the same offense at the court. So that this time you say, oh, when you commit, there are 38 offenses. When you commit any of the first 3, each will attract 60 Ghana or 5 penalty units. 60 Ghana each. A ticket is given to go. When you commit the 4th one, it is increased to 120.
Just 10 penalty.
Or 10 penalty units. And then you take it and go and pay. Or you pay, you commit thief, and another ticket is generated for you, and it is all recorded against your name in the license office electronically, and then you go and pay 15 penalty units or 180 Ghana. That is, and then there's seize one. That one, it says that all your records that you have, conducted yourself on the road or the behaviors have to be printed out, which is electronic, what do you call, a counterpart license, and then you are arrested physically and taken to, this time, physical court to go and show to the court your behavior over time. And the court has limited option but to convict you, 2, take your license from you or revoke it, 3, cancel it, 4, suspend you for 1 year, not to go to DVLA premises to apply for a new license, and after 12 months as being a passenger and pedestrian, if you want to drive again, you go and beg and apply whether you'll be taken through another license acquisition process for you to get. In all these are attempt to deter it, knowing that all these offences that the 60, if you had been taken there for maybe mobile phone at the court, it is not 60 Ghana. You would have paid maybe 300 Ghana at the court, or risk going to prison. And so drivers have accepted in general that there is dignity in it. It facilitates their work, so that you don't have to be moving up and down from police station, going to court adjournment and all that. And
because sometimes they just want to pay the fine and move on with their lives.
And it also inures to the benefit of road safety in Ghana, because it will deter people on their feet. Because the bits that you are paying, you risk losing your license. And for instance, if you happen to be a corporate driver or a commercial driver, and the sixth offense, you become a passenger, you lose your job. And so these threats are there to deter drivers to comply with basic rules. For instance, these offenses are not far-fetched. If you run red light, if you speed, if you are not in mobile, or if you are not in seatbelt, if you are not carrying advanced warning triangle to display when the vehicle is disabled, when you
speak on the phone.
From a phone, you are riding without crash element of protective gear, and when you go for building materials, for example, and you don't secure it with tarpaulin, and it keeps on dropping, leaks and scatter and all that. And
how about driving without a valid license?
And not valid license per se, but when your license is not renewed, and when your roadworthy is also not renewed. I think these are
all those attract the spotlight.
Yes, but these basic things are adding up to 38, and it has been set aside. Know that today, when you commit these things, these are not new offenses. When you commit to today, because we have not started, you are taken to court. But this one is coming to even give a little dignity, freedom to drivers to go through this road processes so that they get deterred and change their attitude.
If you arrested me,
yes,
and what would you take from me? What kind of details would you take?
The workflow is very simple. When we start, we already have a spot find device called Personal Digital Assistant Spot Find Device that every police officer has. Electronic, like mobile phone. So all that we need from you is that you should remember your certificate of competence, which is your license number. So if you are not even carrying your license, but the law says you should carry. If you don't carry, that is an offense, which is not a spot fine offense, but arrest and taken to court. But carrying your license, so far as spot fine is concerned, is able to memorize or write it in any compartment in the front, so that when we stop you, you are able to give it to us for having driven boldly at a public place without wearing seatbelt. Then we enter your certificate, your license number.
Would you keep the license, or
no,
you give it back to
me?
me?
I'm saying that for now, what we have done is that maybe in the beginning it runs side by side. By the end of the day, it is electronic. All that we need is your certificate, your license number, so that when you enter, your record at DVLA will pop up instantly. And so that's what we need. And when any offense against your name will follow you, because your counterpart electronic license is attached to your license at DVLA. So all recordings will be kept, and it will continue to flash until you redeem yourself at a nearby bank within 24 hours. Otherwise, any place you go to conduct transactions, particularly at DVLA, any services that you want to, when they enter your record and they see that you have not paid, the law says that you should be arrested and handed over to police.
So DSP, would the policeman come and sit in my car like they usually would do now?
No. It doesn't take more than 2 minutes, a workflow.
Do you negotiate?
It's not about that. That is why in this regime, under this regime, the needed evidence gathering tools have been procured and others have been procured.
So such as, because sometimes if I run the red lights, I would say it was amber, and per the speed I was on. No, because I know that you've, and I have this at the back of my mind every time I get to a traffic light. You've told me before that the amber doesn't mean speed and go.
That's not it at all.
It means like it's almost like stop. But what if, I mean, just when I got to the traffic lights, just there, I mean, it was amber, and my speed was not going to allow me.
The law, the speed of 50 may not allow you, fine.
Exactly.
But that
who
is,
determines?
the law allows for,
you know, sometimes
the law says that when you are at the stop line, when the amber came, you move.
Okay, but sometimes the policeman and the driver may disagree as to whether you cross the red light or not.
The spot fine team is not going to get into these grey areas. What is important for us is that the digital cameras and the audiovisual cameras are there to capture, to show it to you.
Okay.
As you see,
at what point do you review? Because these are supposed to be instant fines.
Oh no, the instant fine. So the law says that if you don't want to go through the spot fine deterrence, you can opt to go to the normal court.
So you can opt. It means that you are disagreeing. So let's go to the court and let's go and settle it.
And we also have a disagreement desk at the spot fine office, where complaints can be lodged.
So where is your spot fine office?
In Accra, we've already put a structure at the central MTTD to I get it, where we're going to have, and we're going to have other ones in the north and all that. So there is a desk, and there is a national monitoring team that will come from the department.
Okay, so you would only take me to the office if I disagreed with the charge?
Oh yeah, not taking you to office. It can give you an appointment date. Okay.
Huh?
Yes. About this day we give.
So
cheat.
you will give
me. Give you cheat.
But we only come because you take the license.
Well, I'm saying that it will. I said it will run side by side, and also.
I want us to get to the point where you don't take my license. You just take my number, the car number. You take my details, like you want the details on my driver's license, and then you ask me to report, and then I show up.
What I mean is that so far as this system is concerned, it's electronic. So physical license retention may be even discouraged, because you have your license electronically. Initially, what the law thought of was that public address systems were very bad. Individual address, tracing them was difficult. Always a lot of bench warrants in our lives. And then we needed for people to be forthcoming for offense they have committed at the police station or the court. So the law says that when you commit any road offense or you are involved in a crash, your license should be immediately retained. But I'm saying that with this sport fine coming, though the law mandates enjoins everybody to carry his or original driver's license. For sport fine teams, as we move around, it will not be, the emphasis will not be taking of license, but you have your license number, so that when you have it and the offense is against you, you can run. The law says that if within 24 hours you're not paid, there is a percentage that will be added on. Are you getting it? You'll be charged on daily basis.
Okay, so a quick one, then I'll move to Charles. Yeah. If you disagree and you have to go to court because of verification and all those things, how long would it take?
Oh, for us at our office, what is a strict liability? We have all the evidence. It shouldn't last for a day. But what we have also seen in other jurisdictions, and even in Ghana, and why the sport fine has been slashed to about a third of what you would have been slapped with at the court, is that when there's compelling evidence, and you want to be litigant, and you waste public time, police time, go and compound the court, whatever. At the end of the day, when you are convicted, you know you'll be given the harshest. Okay. That's what I would. Right. So that's why we don't want to use I think and I saw and all that, but evidence gathering tool that will gather. Okay. And as you are aware, as I'm speaking, about 200 radar guns are going, and some are being retained for sport fine. We even have out of the radar gun, we have speed cameras. You see, that we were not going to, the sport fine will not only rely on radar guns, which will gather images of, but the camera will capture. The police officer will carry the mobile one. Oh, okay. And it is audiovisual. It records the vehicle, the number, the speed at which it can digitally, and it can play back even to the court. Are they standing there 24 hours to be recording? No. When the sport fine team comes on the road, on the spot, they will use to gather. And this time it's not going to be argument that this is audiovisual. So you see yourself in a video form. So it's not like you are at every place, but you are there sometimes. Oh, what we're going to do is that show up. We're going to have sport fine teams in the southern side and northern side, particularly where accident prone are, and where incidents of road infractions, road criminality are occurring. And it will be as and when, because we think that as we start and the system begins to bite, people will begin to put up, and incidents of indiscipline will go down, crashes will go down. Are you getting? That is what we see. So it was not going to be permanent. But you shouldn't even also predict the sport fine teams, because it's where they are occurring. So would you be on the traveling route? Because I remember when I used to go to Takoradi, you'd usually be like in the caves. I mean, it's almost like you're surprising me. That's not how sport fine teams are going to. You see, at the same time, the sport fine teams will be operating. The traditional traffic police officers, the department, will also be working. Let's get it to. Okay. Yeah, all the sport fine teams will be over there working. The other traditional motor traffic and transport department personnel will also be doing enforcement on all other laws. Because, for instance, the drunk driving is not in the sport fine. Drunkenness, so what do you expect? The other police officers will also be working to look out for. Okay, so Charles, the question that I said I didn't want to forget was about bicycles. What is the thing with bicycles crossing even when cars have stopped for people to cross the road?
That has to do with enforcement on that aspect too. And with that, currently the challenge we have is, for instance, if you see a policeman at an intersection directing traffic, the vehicles have stopped, and you expect that someone with a motor bike or bicycle should stop, but sometimes you see them passing through. At that particular moment, it will be difficult for the policeman to follow up because he's not mobile. So it has been a challenge. What we are looking at, we want to educate them, use your medium to let them understand that if you are using a bicycle or a motorbike, when you get to a traffic light and indicates that you should stop, you have to. When you go to the northern part of Ghana, they don't do that. When you get to a traffic light and it's red, you should stop. But over here, they think they are not part of the normal, regular traffic process. So the challenge has to do with how to trace them and get them arrested. My problem is right here in front of our office, we don't have a policeman directing. But when you're crossing and you're in the pedestrian crossing, the cars would stop for you sometimes. When they want to be nice, because sometimes you stand there for a long time and then you get somebody admiring you, so they stop.
but the motorbike would still cross, like they would still,
it's in discipline. It's in discipline, and that is what we are talking about now. It's in discipline. It's attitude.
So what kind of campaign are you carrying out to change this kind of attitude?
We talk to them day in and day out.
It's amazing because I remember look left or right, left again.
When you go to the central
MTTD
right now, when you go to the central MTTD right now, you can see thousands of motorbikes arrested because of this particular incident.
Okay, so DSP, the monies, the spot fines, the money, where would it go?
All right, there is a law guiding it. And it's basically the state money, because when you look at the year under review, for example, we went to motor court with 4,784 arrested offenders on our road criminals, and in the process the court convicted 3,905 Ghanaians who committed varying road offences. 3 were incarcerated or sent to prison, and at the end of the day, 1,455,506 Ghana cedis as fine imposed have been paid into the state coffers as at now. But with the spot fine, because the state is not running this on its own.
It doesn't come to the police service?
No, this one doesn't into the state coffers. That's the effort, our contribution from the department.
So you're not benefiting directly?
Oh no, the benefit is.
Why am I thinking that I want to advocate for the money to come directly to the police? No, because
Ghana is clothing me. For instance, I'm not clothed.
I know, but you may not be able to say, but I can, because sometimes when the monies go to the state coffers, it's difficult even when you want something for the money to
I'm saying
come
as at
to you.
now, this is how it is. But with the spot fine, there is an act that is at the end of the day when a spot fine notice is imposed on a person, and the person pays at the end of the running costs and everything. Police is entitled to 25% of each spot fine issue.
All right.
For us to build our capacity, training and all that. So when the spot fine starts, these are some of the benefits. And to Parliament thought that at the end of the day, incidents of public police corruption will reduce in the department. So at the end of the day, it will generate more income to the state government and change attitude and reduce crashes.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask people for their comments on this. What is it that you want clarified? What is your worry with all these spot fine issue? And then we can call the DSP and Charles again sometime for them to address your direct questions and concerns on this particular one. So I want to say thank you, DSP Alexander Banks, Director Training and Research, Police MTTD, and Charles Odro Kwarteng is Assistant Planning Officer, National Road Safety Commission. My hope, my fear, if the corruption would go down. But then again, these days when I'm talking about corruption, I look back a bit because, you know, I say that all of us may be corrupt in one way or the other, so it's not just the police. But thank you for enjoying 3 hours with me here on the AM show. Today, a little prayer for my colleague Roland Walker will do. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and God willing, we're back here tomorrow. Stay on. News Desk will be at 10, the latest news information right here on the Joy News channel. Enjoy the rest of your day.